While the Bitcoin market and crypto is crashing to what seems like a never-ending downside, will we find a bottom? Because everybody in the market right now is being subjected to red light therapy right across the board. But is the end near of this downside price action? Is the 4-year cycle absolutely this is a case? We have 1 year now for an entire bear market. Well, I'm here to tell you there's things on the horizon that I think this is absolutely all manipulation, taking advantage of the liquidity and the bearishness and the risk off mentality right now because of this temporary government shutdown. And we're starting to see signs and signals that although this feels terrible now, it usually gets darkest before the dawn. So stick around. Let me know right now, do you think we're going to have new highs in 2026, or is it going to be full bear market year? Because what I'm seeing is the institutions actually starting to stack in, and we're getting key metrics that we may be nearing a bit of a substantial bounce here, especially looking at the risk off signal, aka look at how high this has been in the previous markets where it's dipped down before absolute reversal. Look how high this got before we actually got the reversal, and we're back at the same level to the upside. In addition, we also see Bitcoin is dead. But what have we known about Bitcoin dying? It resurrects like it is Easter almost every time. Not almost, but absolutely every time this has been called. This was the first time it was called dead way back here in early 2011, 2012. And then what do you notice? The price has only gone up and to the right with some pretty substantial shakeouts along the way. But the institutions are here. The big money is here. So as I laid out in last week's video, last Sunday, while we may see some near-term bearishness, which is exactly what we are seeing, I hope you're taking advantage of the knowledge that we're sharing for you here on the Discover Crypto channel, because I am not a blind bull. I'm overwhelmingly bullish on where the price is going in 2026, and especially the years beyond that. But in the near term, with the risk-off mentality of capital not being sure where to go, and also not just Bitcoin, not just your favorite altcoin, but seeing NVIDIA drop 8% in one candle, and the S&P 500 dropping, coming all the way back down to test this previous range high. Is it over for the bulls, or is it just a reset before Trump makes this market run super hot again? Because the signs, the signals are out there. Case in point, looking just at the Bitcoin chart, the worst time to sell is when you see things in extreme peak fear. In fact, we're in the lowest reading that we've seen so far on the fear and greed index. In fact, look at this. We're sitting here at the 14 mark, 11 yesterday, 14. We're at 14 a couple days before that, 16. We've had several consecutive days in this extreme fear reading with this super aggressive, fast velocity, the fastest velocity so far to the downside in the shortest amount of time that we've seen in any of these previous market dips. The question here that everybody's struggling with is, are these dips or is the bear market here? I think with all these institutions that have come in, the big market players, again, they're taking advantage of the fear in the market, and they're taking advantage of any indication that we should go risk off, and people are falling for it while we're seeing overwhelming signals that they're stacking in. And I'm going to show you a chart that shows that in just a moment. So let's take a step back and look at a broader view on Bitcoin and what exactly is being signaled right now. Because on the 3-day chart, we see the RSI, the strength index, down here, very weak, up here, very strong. We're at the weakest point. In fact, weaker than we saw on the FTX collapse, which was right here. Of course, we had a little bit lower reading before that, but what we saw on the RSI, we are much below. Similarly, the COVID crash, the world economy turned off. And what do we see? The RSI is below where we were even in that catastrophe. I think the black swan of the cycle that we're dealing with right now is the government shutdown. And in fact, I think the trouble we're seeing right now with the price action to the downside is the black swan that nobody saw coming. A government shutdown not being the black swan, but then just kicking the can another 2 months down the road across the end of the year where people are harvesting profits and changing capital and portfolio management for tax season at the end of this year, December 31st, the end of the fiscal year for most individuals. And back to this chart, RSI as low as it's been at the same time, we're seeing peak fear. The worst time to sell. It doesn't mean it can't go lower, but I think we're setting up a bit of a bounce here. And the question is going to be, to what level do we bounce? And the question is going to be, at what level do we bounce? Are we at that bounce bottom right now? Well, looking at the chart, let's zoom out back to the 3-day chart. We have the RSI. Are we at the bottom? Are we about to bounce? Well, looking at that chart, we see the RSI on the daily as low. Let's see, when was the last time the weakness was this low? Almost there right here, but not quite. In fact, it was all the way back here. Look at that on this dip we saw in basically August of 2023. It's amazing. This bull market trend has persisted so long. In fact, we feel like it never happened. But I mean, guys, we've moved all the way from 15,500, 700+% up to above 126,000. There's going to be bumps along the road. There's going to be dips. There's going to be washouts on a time basis, meaning how long it takes, even if it's sideways price action or on very aggressive moves to the downside. The market is washing out the tourists as all these big market players come in. And looking at the price action, we're coming back into that zone, bouncing now still above, still higher low. If we bounce here. If we go a little bit lower, we still have this huge amount of price activity, a lot of memory here in terms of liquidity that is traded in this range, both rejections and bounces. So this is kind of what I'm looking for as kind of a low if we do drop lower in the near term. I'm talking about in the next 2 weeks or so. But when we're asking, will we bounce? Well, RSI on the daily is very low. Let's get down to the 4-hour. Look at that. We've got a bit of, basically flat lows that we see on the RSI. And from that same level, look at the aggressive move to the downside. That's a bullish divergence if I've ever seen one. The question is going to be, are we going to see some money come in? And is there anybody else buying or institutions stepping in? Because we do see right now as we speak that Wintermute, Coinbase, and Circle are buying as we speak. So this is a question. Will this be a sustained buy? Will it not? What is the trend going into 2026? And furthermore, we have entered the danger zone. The question is, what is the danger? In this case, this is a U.S. total liquidity versus U.S. public debt. And this is the same zone that this metric reached before we got that massive money print coming out of COVID. And we already know, we've covered it on this channel, I've shared it a ton, and that is we have the US preparing for $2,000 stimulus checks, Japan preparing for $110 billion stimulus, China has approved a $1.4 trillion stimulus. This is all money printing. This is all new liquidity for the system. And of course, don't forget the Fed is ending quantitative tightening on December 1st. And now we're starting to see all the signs and signals that we're likely going to get another rate cut. And so what my question to you is, are you selling in peak fear, giving your money away for somebody that's looking longer term before this massive liquidity injection into the world economy is going to send the prices to Valhalla? Or are you going to run away right now when it tends to be the best opportunity to buy? There may be some more blood. So again, while I am bullish on 2026, I think we have a lot of chop to deal with between now and the end of January. So do what's best for your portfolio, but do not run away before the flood comes. I'm not selling in fear. Are you? Let me know. We'll see you in the next video.